Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. Today we are talking about, in my opinion, one of the most overlooked and underrated medium format film cameras. This is Pentax 645. It is the original, aka the cheapest one. While there are lots of reviews about the newer versions of this camera, I believe original 645 is a really good option. This was my first medium format camera and so far I like it, and so far I still use it. I got my camera in early 2020 from eBay, from Japanese seller. They had very good reviews, so I got camera from them. Before putting together this video, I went on eBay and checked all of the prices, and it seems like nothing changed much since I got it. There are a lot of different options as far as lenses. The ones that I have is 75mm f2.8. Later on I got another lens which is a 120 f4 macro lens. It's very nice portrait lens and also good for macro photography. I would say this camera is on the heavier side, but the way the grip is made, it is pretty ergonomic and very convenient to hold, so I really don't have any complaints about the weight of this camera. When shooting a roll of 120 film on Pentax 645, you will get 15 frames per roll, but the newer versions allow to get 16 exposures per roll. And if shooting 220 film, you get twice more exposures. This camera does need a battery to operate. It takes 6 AA batteries. I use rechargeable batteries and I never store batteries inside my cameras. This camera has built-in light meter. It is pretty accurate, so yeah, it's a very good feature to have. Another thing that I've noticed about Pentax 645, whenever the batteries are nearly dead, the light meter will not show the readings in the viewfinder. The viewfinder is pretty clear. It's not the most brightest viewfinder in the world, but it's also not the most dim. I would say it's average. I've never had any problems with focusing even in lower light scenarios, so it's pretty good. The shutter speed on this camera goes up to 1,000th of a second, which is very useful for bright and very sunny conditions. When it comes to working with this camera in studio setting with a flash, the flash sync speed is 1/60th of a second, unless you have leaf shutter lens for this camera. And there is at least one that I have seen. It's a little bit more expensive than the traditional lens, but it will allow to go up to 1/500th of a second. There is also an exposure compensation button on this camera, which, to be honest, I never use. Well, I think it's worth mentioning because for some people it could be a very useful feature. The lens is manual focus only. I think autofocusing is available for newer versions of this camera. One of the coolest things about this camera, which I personally like, is the power winder. I seriously like and appreciate this feature. I wish my Hasselblad had one. There is multiple exposure mode in this camera as well. There is this little knob that you have to turn before taking the first exposure, and that will prevent a camera from winding the film. Whenever you want to make multiple exposures, more than 2, then you have to turn that knob every time. One of the downsides of this camera, and again, it could be a downside only for some people, once you load the film and started shooting, you cannot switch film backs mid-roll. For me, it's not a big deal because I don't switch film backs mid-roll. Even whenever I work with Hasselblad, it's just not part of my workflow. If comparing Pentax 645 with Hasselblad 500cm, I would say 645 does not require any extra accessories. There's already built-in light meter, which is accurate and very decent. There is built-in hot shoe mount for the flash or trigger, and the lenses are pretty standard and they will take any screw-in type of lens filter. So yeah, you don't really need extra accessories with this camera. This is extra tip. When getting Pentax 6 or 5 of eBay or any other marketplace where you cannot inspect the camera in real life before actually buying it, don't be afraid to ask extra photos from a seller. A lot of times seller would not include photos of certain parts of this camera. Maybe they don't know, maybe they forget, who knows why. Make sure you have the photos of the battery compartment. It's gotta be clean, in very good, near perfect condition, rust free, no stains from oxidation or anything like that. This part is very important. Without batteries this camera will not work, and this is another reason to not to keep the batteries inside the cameras, especially if you're not using them every single day. The only little issues that I've got so far with this camera, I kind of broke a piece of battery compartment. I think it happened a couple of months ago. I don't know how that happened. Probably I dropped it. Anyways, apart from that, this camera was very reliable and I've used it for over 3 years now. I hope this video was helpful. Thanks for watching and see you in another one.